Dark Elf's Chosen, Episode 1. To purchase the ebook version or to see sneak peeks of future episodes, visit us at worldsofprotheka.com. If you like listening and watching stories from Protheka, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thank you. And now sit back and enjoy the show. Chapter 1. Julius. Rosenfire, I murmur, reminding myself of who I am. Our family holds great weight and power in Orthani. We own our name. For many generations we were Orthani. Most elves either feared us or aspired to be like us, but none of them could. We are the greatest fire users anyone has ever seen. There are legends written of my ancestors, and soon there will be legends written about me. Do you think he can take him? I hear a servant whisper. The pause before the other elf answers tells me everything, and it makes my blood boil. As the keeper of the Rosenfire legacy, I've given my life to be the best. No one can match my fire-wielding strength. I've never lost a challenge or run away from a fight. Win at all costs was the lesson grandfather taught me. No matter what, you must never lose. Members of our clan knew that our mission was to protect our status, preserve and enhance our power, and continue to build upon it. Now the elves are talking. I hear them whisper about a challenger to my legacy, about someone who has greater fire-wielding magic power than I. I don't mind a cocky challenger. I've decimated those who think they might have a shot of possessing greater power than I do. But these whispers have given me pause. Respect is everything in Dark Elf society. We are our reputations. We cultivate our cruelty to keep all others at bay. It's the best defense to be perpetually on the offensive. But if someone else out there has greater power than me, then I'm dead. My family is dead. All the people we've ever stabbed in the back for our ascension will line up to use them to attack us. The elves scatter as I walk into my office angrily. They cower at the sound of the rumbles of my footsteps. They know I have heard. They fear what happens should they look in my direction, as do I. If a questioning eye falls upon me, I will make them feel my wrath. The greater insult is not even that I am usurped. It's by who I am usurped by. A lowly baron's son, younger than I, apparently has shown that he has the same gift of fire-wielding as I, if not stronger. The notion makes me want to laugh and destroy the man and his entire family. There is no way that this could happen. There is no one who has power greater than I. It's just not possible. I slam my fist down angrily upon my desk and hurl a few paperweights with an angry snarl. I have studied at the best magic schools in Orthani. My tutors came from as far away as Fourier Island. Grandfather once journeyed to the dark market and came back with a holding cage that allowed me to summon a literal demon from Arasak to train me in fire-wielding magic. The cost in time and treasure to build me up into a formidable weapon capable of leading this family has been huge. And now to hear that some lowly baron's son has outpaced my skills? My anger pulses through me and moves to some bookshelves that I promptly toss aside and smash. This junk is trivial to me. All that matters is annihilating this new threat. I must find this man, this peasant, this mangy bottom feeder, and see for myself if there's any truth to the whispers. A baron's son, a man from a family of low blood, a man who is beneath me is better than me. An angry roar escapes my lips as my anger explodes from me. My thoughts continue to swirl around the anger in my mind as a Zagfer brings a sheaf of papers with more information on my competition. I scan through it and throw it against the wall. Impossible! This elf who claims to have higher magic abilities than me is not just any elf. This man's family has been a thorn in grandfather's side for decades. They have opposed us in Orthani court for generations. I will do whatever needs to be done to destroy them. They cannot be allowed to prevail. For if they do, the first thing that they will do is put my grandfather and I in irons. It has long been rumored that my grandfather found in me the killer instinct that he felt was needed to continue our family's dominance of Orthani politics. Unfortunately, father and mother did not have that drive. They did not have that killer instinct. The rumors thus swirl that grandfather summoned his Arasak demon to thus kill father and mother, and took me into his care, so that I would grow to be the blade he needed. The Baron whose son threatens my standing now was a good friend of father. He had sworn to uncover the truth and investigate the rumors. Obviously, with our family standing in the Orthani court, nothing had ever materialized. But it could. And who knows what they could find? Enough to execute my grandfather for murder and end our family's share of control of Orthani. I must kill this threat. But first, I must witness his power for myself. If it is true in any way, then I need to prepare. There is no way that I will let this mongrel try to usurp my power or sully the Rosenfire name. I walk purposely toward the soldiers' training grounds, hoping to find this young lord named Dukan. I have to know if this rumor is really true. I need to witness this gift with my own eyes. I summon my servant Celestian to accompany me. I need a second witness to corroborate this farce. The training grounds are largely empty, except for a small, tightly gathered crowd. We hear their sighs and gasps of amazement as we approach. Celestian and I press ourselves into the crowd so we can see what the fuss is about. The gangly young man wields a fire brighter than I've ever seen from anyone. There's a purity and power to his fire that makes it glow white, orange, pink, and red simultaneously, giving off a terrific heat. I gaze at my hands, mighty and scarred, then look again at the man. My blood runs cold, shivers cascading down my spine. How? I whisper quietly to myself. Everything begins to turn red. His fire is greater than mine, and I need to know how that is possible. Celestian, sensing my distress, touches my arm. Master, how is this possible? How is he more powerful than you? I don't know. But I do know that if what I'm seeing is true, then my family can no longer rely on me to protect its interest. And that means we're doomed. I'm doomed. Until I realize the one play that will rescue us all.
Chapter 2. Savannah. No more books, I yell as I throw the book towards the wall. My eyes feel strained as I close the cover of my book to rest them. The flowery language and heart-stopping beauty of the poetry sitting in my lap will just have to wait another day. Outside my impressively large cathedral window, the garden is bright and mocking me, as if the roses and shrubbery know full well I am forbidden to walk through the garden. It's not that my father wants me to suffer. On the contrary, he is protecting me, or at least that's what he tells me. There are those who would wish to see you harmed, Savannah. A beauty like yours will not be appreciated out there, he always says. I smile to hide my displeasure whenever he insists that I am too precious for the world. The last time he subjected me to the stories of the outside world was a couple of months ago. He makes efforts to tell me what really happens beyond our gates, but I can't believe that my fellow elves would be so cruel as to mistreat their Zagfer and hunt women for sport. Surely only animals do that, I object, though there's no one there to hear it. I know he has to be exaggerating to make his point. I can't imagine a world as inviting as the red roses outside my window, and the curves of the carefully manicured hedges would ever be as dark and ugly as he paints it. I don't even know what beauty he constantly refers to. I am, well, ordinary. At least, compared to my half-brother's late mother, I am plain. Dukan's mother was ethereal. She lit up rooms, and she stopped conversations just by ascending staircases. At least that is what the Zagva tell me about her. Dukanlas is older than me, so she died before I was even a thought. I think about the large portrait hanging in my father's study. Dukanlas's mother stares down from her immortal oil-painted perch when I visit my father in the evenings. She was quite tall, and even now her skin seems to shine with the black paint used to capture her complexion that is glossy in the light. Dukan has his mother's eyes. They are as gold as honey and possess a sharp wit that makes him perhaps the smartest person in the room. Not that I know much about my brother's social skills. I never see visitors in our home. It is hard not to feel dejected when my own father hides me away from others. Just once, I would love to hear Dukan match wits with a well-revered duke, or even just one of father's merchant friends. I am sure he dazzles all of them. Libby, one of the Zagfa, assures me that Dukan is quite charming in public. I wish I had more than just her word for it. I rise to my feet and sit the poetry volume in my cushioned chair. The leather book looks dirty against the dusty, rose-ruffled seat, but that is simply a result of age. The book is far from dirty. I move to the enormous vanity my father had imported for me. The mirror is almost the size of the whole wall, and the cherry-stained frame is dwarfed by the shimmering-looking glass. I study my reflection, looking for some flaw, some mark that makes me worthy of ridicule. My skin is not dark like my father's, but that is to be expected. In his grief, my father took a human lover, and I was born. He assures me that my mother did love me. It's just that a union with a human was dangerous. He says that is why he is so protective of me. He sent her away so she wouldn't have to endure the gossip or worse. He promised her he would shield me from any prejudice. I am a grown woman now, 23 years of age, and educated by some of the most respected and discreet tutors in all of Orthani. The schooling I received was right here in this room. It is a large room. High ceilings stretch out far beyond my tall frame. I must have gotten my height from my father. There is no way a human woman could be as tall as I am. The inspection of my looks continues. My eyes are definitely human, as is my hair. My brown orbs are not as piercing as an elf's. I can't bewitch with a glance or command respect with my warm, spice-coloured eyes. My equally warm red hair is the only bright colour I have, showing in my complexion. Perhaps it is all those years of denying me sunshine. I am pale, not white as marble, but I look like one of my father's beloved busts he keeps in his study. Maybe that is all I am to him, a piece of art, proof that he could rebel from his lot in life as a baron. Maybe my mother was just a wild impulse that came back to haunt him. I wonder, voicing a thought I don't dare speak out loud to my father. He doesn't speak of my mother with reverence as he does Dukan's mother. She is often mentioned as a, well, not a mistake, but more an obligation. I feel there is more to the story, but he doesn't respond well to my questions. I learned a long time ago not to press about my mother. I never got satisfying answers. The few Zagfa who talk with me tell me they can't tell me anything either, since none of them were hired on at the time. Besides, they like to remind me that even if they had any information about my mother, it would be improper to discuss it. I am the family's dirty little secret, but I can't fault my father for wanting to keep me away from the public eye. I am not the future of the family. Dukan is. As such, I am his responsibility once the family mantle turns over to him. I couldn't be the cause of any problems for him. Dukan is my brother. Yes, he was born with advantages, but that's hardly his fault. Dukan always speaks to me with kindness. He never has made me feel lesser than him, even if my father is to be believed, and there are people in Orthani that would disagree with him. I can't imagine Dukan having an enemy in this world. He is the perfect gentleman my father meant to raise. It couldn't be possible for anyone to think negatively about him. I love my brother, and I want to see him rise to the position and esteem he deserves. If that means I have to stay in the shadows, I'm fine with that. But does that also mean that I must also hide away from the incredible beauty the world has to offer? Surely it doesn't have to be all or nothing. The boredom I am accustomed to snips again with resentment in the corners of my mind. I am the model of obedience, and yet I can see it in my eyes in the mirror. I am dying in this perfect cage my father has built for me. I'm not as dramatic to think I will actually die in this stuffy room, but I do think my father's insistence that I stay nestled in this house all day is excessive. I am not one of my father's priceless treasures he keeps under lock and key in his study. I am a young woman. Even if my existence is a blemish on the family, I could at least be allowed a little freedom in my own home. I tell my reflection. The rows of hardbound books on the bookshelf only remind me of my boredom. I have read all of these dozens of times, I muse, turning to study them. Each time, I feel as if the ink will wear off the page onto my pale skin. Soon my entire library will be visible for others to read just by examining my palms. I throw myself at my bright window like a tantruming child. The roses are still beautiful, and the world seems to be moving on without me. I can't waste a day like this at my window. I turn to face the heavy oak door that is my only barrier to the outside world. Well, not my only barrier. My father employs guards to make sure no one enters the grounds without his knowledge. I suppose I find that a bit paranoid. However, there has been a guard posted at my window morning, noon, and night for as long as I can remember. I take one last glance at the window before I make up my mind. I creep to my door. I am an obedient child, but I'm not above sneaking out of my grand prison every now and then. I check the hallway before bolting for the back door. No one sees me, and that's for the best. Although the roses are my sirens, I know if I go to the garden, I will just be escorted back inside. I change course for a field I played in as a child. It is just as bright and far more open than the garden. I am safe here. I rush to a patch of wild daisies and begin picking them to build daisy chains. My hands begin to work, and it feels good to be doing something, anything, in the sun. I fashion a crown for my head. I'm sure I look ridiculous since I am far beyond my girlhood. Still, I can pretend I was once a carefree girl, and this field has always kept my secrets. I begin to hum a tune Father used to sing at bedtime. But as soon as I reach the chorus, I am struck silent by the snap of a twig. I turn around, and right at that moment feel a hit to the back of my head as someone grabs me from the back. I try to scream, but the blackness takes over and I pass out.
Chapter 3. Julius. Master Rosenfire has specifically ordered me not to let anyone pass, the well-dressed Zagfer says at the door to my grandfather's chateau. I look at the Zagfer. He stands well-dressed, well-fed. A petite human woman stands at his side, perhaps a little too close. I feel that there is a chance that this Zagfer has been dipping his quill into the company well. This human would be a slave of grandfather's, and for this Zagfer to have lain his hands on her and stuck his cock inside of her would be a form of theft. Celestian, I say with boredom, hold my cloak. I pass my cloak off and disembark from the carriage. We are maybe half an hour outside of Orthani, at my grandfather's summer dwelling. My lord, I cannot allow you entry. The Zagfer begins again with his loathsome voice. Silence, I say and point my palm towards the human woman. Magical fire rips from my fingertips and races towards her. Poor animal doesn't even know what hits her as arcs of flame course across her chest and throw her backwards. Jenna, the tiresome Zagfer yells. She'll be fine, I say as I walk past them and into my grandfather's chateau. What is the meaning of this intrusion? My grandfather's voice booms out across the main entrance of his chateau as I step inside. His eyes find me. Oh, it is you, Julius. The charred smell is your human female, I say, as I come inside to embrace my grandfather. If you're talking of Jenna, that was last week's entertainment for the Duke's visit, he says. We're trying to find a buyer, but right now only the mines are looking for help. What brings you here? We have trouble, I say. Dukan Friedman of the Friedman clan has somehow found it in himself to increase his skill with magic missiles and fire-based spells. He could make himself indispensable to the king, grandfather says without a pause. His mind is sharper than all the dark elves in Orthani combined. This could spell a new era of persecution against Rosenfire interests. But I have a plan, grandfather. Oh? I propose we take Dukan out of the picture, I say with a dark smile. Permanently. Grandfather raises an eyebrow. And how, pray tell, do you plan on doing that? I have a few ideas, I say, savoring the moment. But first we need to gather some intel on his family and find out any secrets about the Friedman elves. I've had many operatives look at my enemies over the years and have found nothing, grandfather says. I know, but where you failed, there is a chance that I might find something that eluded your sight, I say. I will send Celestian ahead of me and have him carry a message of parley. I see, grandfather says, stroking his beard thoughtfully. Well, it's worth a shot. I'd say be careful, but if the Friedman elves are more powerful in their magic, then we're all dead anyways. So the only thing I will say is to not fail. I won't, grandfather, I say, feeling a thrill of excitement at the prospect of taking down one of our greatest enemies. I'll be careful. Good, Grandfather says, clapping me on the back. Now let's go get some wine and discuss this further. I have a thought about where you can start getting into their web.
Chapter 4. Savannah. When I wake up, I'm still groggy, but I quickly see that I'm in my room. How did I get here? The guards subdued you and brought you back, Father says, stepping out of the shadows. Why did you leave your room and go to the garden? I struggle to remember the events leading up to my escape attempt. I don't know. I felt trapped and needed to clear my head. Father's face is stern. You cannot leave the palace grounds without permission. It puts you in danger and undermines my authority. I'm sorry, I say, feeling guilty for causing him worry. Father's expression softens slightly. I understand that it's difficult for you to be cooped up here, but your safety is paramount. You must learn to find solace within these walls. I nod, but I know that I won't be able to stop myself from trying to escape again. The urge to be free is too strong. I know that tone of voice, Savannah, he says. I know you don't mean to stay in here. Would you? I ask, sitting up. Would you stay cloistered here? I would, yes, he nods. If you knew the dangers that exist in this world, if you knew what Protheka was really like. You say that over and over, if I knew what Protheka was like. But how do you expect me to ever know what it is like if I never get a chance to leave? Listen to me, Savannah, Father says. Death, slavery, and worse are daily occurrences outside of our walls. I shudder at the thought. But I can't just live in fear forever. I want to see the world for myself, make my own decisions. Father takes a step closer to me. And I want to protect you from the world. I want to keep you safe from the horrors that exist out there. But what if I am willing to risk it? I ask, my voice shaking. What if I want to face those horrors head on? Then you are a fool and I have failed you as a father, he says as he stands up. This world was created from a seed of evil, and it was nurtured with cruelty and vice. Those who do not realize that are doomed to suffer. If you want to join the poor humans who are bought and sold in the markets on a daily basis, you will find a way to get there. But by the deceiver, you will not do it without surpassing all my efforts. I watch as Father storms out of my room, and I feel a sense of dread wash over me. I know that I can't stay here forever, locked away in this gilded cage. I need to see the world for myself, no matter the cost. I spend the next few days planning my escape. I map out the palace grounds, looking for any weak spots in the security. I slowly gather the supplies I'll need for the journey ahead. A map, some food and water, a cloak to keep me warm in the chilly night air, and some money, lent to me by a Zagfer hoping to get in my good graces. Finally, the day of my escape arrives. I wait until the dead of night, when the guards are at their most lax. I slip out of my room and make my way through the palace, moving in the shadows and avoiding the few guards on patrol. When I reach the outer wall, I take a deep breath and begin to climb. My hands scrape against the rough stone, but I hold on tight, using every ounce of strength I have to pull myself up. Finally, I reach the top of the wall and hoist myself over. I jump down to the other side and land with a thud. I pause for a moment, listening for any sign of the guards. When I hear only silence, I start to run. I run until my lungs burn and my legs ache. I run until I am far away from the palace, deep into the heart of the city. I am free, and I'm terrified. But I am also exhilarated. For the first time in my life, I am in control of my own destiny. I am making my own choices and taking risks. My first order of business is one I have dreamed of for far too long. I am going to make my way to a dining establishment and order myself a meal. Just like a regular person. What could go wrong?
Chapter 5. Julius. I bear news, Master, Celestian says. Over the last few days, Celestian has done his job well. The information he gathered on Lord Dowkin and his family is a gold mine of knowledge that I can use to my advantage. The Friedman family thinks that they've buried their secrets well, but they haven't. For instance, in the last few days, I have learned that the family has made some very well-timed investments with a shipping company that runs out of Milthar. The shipping company, run by a minotaur named Romas, has been implicated in some human uprisings against their legitimate dark elf masters. I've learned that the Friedman family has an average portfolio of Nephtherium mines in Orkland. I am all ears, Celestian, I say with a raised eyebrow. My mind is already racing with all the possibilities. Celestian takes a deep breath before starting. It appears that the Baron's daughter, Lady Savannah, has snuck out of the family's compound. How old is this information? I ask. Maybe about an hour, he says. It was reported to me by one of the ethereal. I feel the hairs on the back of my neck prickle, and I turn towards the fireplace. I can just barely make out a pair of disembodied eyes hovering in the dark. The ethereal. Formless, bodiless, substanceless spirits from Arasak. Dark elf wizards and magic users create crystals in which they transport the ethereal to Protheka and chain them to this realm. The crystals sell for a pretty penny. They are commonly used as spies by those without scruples, those like Celestian. Things we bury in the dark are meant to be unearthed someday, and the time has come for the Friedman family's secrets to be revealed, I declare to Celestian. If the information is so fresh, let us be there to greet it. Did the ethereal say where to find the young thing? Old Baron Friedman is a great war hero who led battles against other races and saved one of the Orthani princes. This is an admirable feat in my eyes, but not greater than what my family has done. She was headed towards an eating establishment the last time they checked. I'm ready to put my cards on the table and issue a challenge to this cursory Lord Dukin. I'm here to eliminate the threat to my family legacy, and nothing will stop me from it. I knew from prior reports that this was a secret that the old Baron had tried and failed to hide, that he had a daughter. Apparently she is sickly and not allowed to go out. She has never been seen by anyone besides the old Baron's most trusted confidants and employees. She is a living ghost, but now that I'm here, she will not be. I'm going to find this daughter, see for myself what this fuss is about, and confirm if she truly is sick. She could be misshapen or deformed, and the old Baron is ashamed of her. Or she could be inbred, which would definitely cause quite the scandal for the Friedman family. If I could just lay eyes on her and confirm for everyone that this sick daughter is another scam, I could use this to my advantage. Then I can make Lord Dukin renounce his powers and confirm that I am the greatest fire wielder in Orthani. Or I could find his daughter who has so foolishly decided to venture out into Orthani, and I could kill her, ransom her, or use her for whatever end I need to achieve my aims. Let us go, I tell Celestian. Let us see for ourselves what I'm going to do.
Chapter 6. And Eatle. Savannah. Oh, amazing. Having never been in any sort of establishment in Orthani before, I have to say the dark elf version of hospitality is very ornate, even more so than I expected having lived in the palace. The restaurant that I find myself walking into is massive. There is a bar on the first floor tended to by lowly Zagfa who instruct human waitresses. The main dining room is on the second and third floor. I see several pairs of eyes follow me as soon as I walk in through the customer door. There are no humans around me, no half-elves like me, only dark elves, men and women. All the other human women are wearing skin-tight attire as they take drinks and food back. There is the frequent groping that they are subjected to, but they seem to be holding themselves together. I approach the hostess, who looks at me with scorn. I can feel her eyes lingering on me, sizing me up as if I was an insect beneath her feet. "What do you need?" she asks. "I wanted to sit and have a meal," I say. "Is this the right place to go?" "Can you afford a meal at a place like this, human?" she asks. "I think so." I hesitate. "I don't really know." "Do you have a reservation?" she asks. I shake my head. "No, I don't have a reservation. Her lips curl into a smirk. Then I'm afraid we can't accommodate you. I open my mouth to protest, but she cuts me off. Unless, of course, you're willing to pay a fee. I look at the hostess. She seems to be toying with me. She licks her lips slowly, undressing me with her eyes as I finally nod. How much? 500 pieces, she says, crossing her arms. My heart sinks. That's almost a third of the money I brought with me. But I so want to have a meal that I relent. Here, I say, taking my purse and counting out 5 gold pieces. Her eyes widen with surprise, and she takes the money from me. Follow me, she says, leading me up a grand staircase. The dining room is even more ornate than the first floor. Crystal chandeliers hang from the ceiling, casting a warm golden glow across the room. I take a seat at a small table near the back, trying to ignore the stares of the other patrons. A Zagfa waiter approaches me, his eyes flickering with something that I can't quite place. What would you like to order? He asks, his voice smooth as silk. I'll have the special, I say, trying to sound confident. Without a word, he walks away. I look around, a bit discomforted by how quiet things have gotten in the dining room. I try looking around, but it appears as if everyone is staring at me curiously. Would you like some company? A voice says, and I look up to see a dark elf soldier, a captain of the King's Guard, sitting down at my table. I was just trying to enjoy a meal, I say. Well, you'll enjoy it with me here, he says, if you know what's good for you. I feel my stomach churn as he leans closer to me, his breath hot against my cheek. I try to move my chair back, but he places his hand on my thigh. I stiffen, trying to keep my composure. You know, I don't usually go for humans, he says with a smirk. But there's something about you that I can't resist. I try to push his hand away, but he grips my thigh tightly, his thumb rubbing small circles on my skin. Don't be like that, he says, his voice low and dangerous. I can make it worth your while. My heart races as I try to think of a way out of this situation. The other patrons in the restaurant seem to be ignoring us, as if this kind of behavior is normal. I feel trapped and helpless. Suddenly, the waiter returns with my food, placing it in front of me and breaking the captain's hold on me. I take a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. Enjoy your meal, the waiter says with a slight bow before walking away. I try to focus on my food, but I can feel the captain's eyes on me. I take a bite, savouring the flavours and the relief that I'm not being touched anymore. You're quite delicious, you know, the captain says with a grin. I feel bile rise up in my throat as I push my plate away from me. I'm done, I say firmly, standing up from the table. The captain reaches out to grab my arm, but I jerk away from him, feeling a surge of anger. He reaches out, grabs me, and pulls me back to his lap. You're done when I say you're done, he says.
Chapter 7. Julius. This is the third restaurant we've tried, Celestian, I grumble. If we find nothing here, I swear I will order you to be beaten. The ethereal is not familiar with Orthani, my lord, Celestian says, considering they spend most of their days inside a crystal. Is this a joke to you? No, my lord, Celestian says with the appropriate level of respect. I meant no offense. I waved my hand dismissively. Never mind. Let us focus on our mission. The Baron's daughter must be found. We will find her, my lord, Celestian says, before she even finishes her meal. I take a deep breath and remind myself that my servant's ignorance is not his fault. Just find us a place where we can ask around about a lone woman, I say, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. And try to be discreet this time. We pass by several more restaurants, but they all seem too busy or too quiet for our purposes. Finally, Celestian points out a modest-looking establishment with a sign that reads, The Blue Dolphin. This one looks promising, my lord, he says. As we enter, a young woman greets us with a smile. Table for two? She asks. We're not here to eat, I say curtly. We're looking for someone. Her smile fades a little, but she remains polite. I see. And who might that be? She is the daughter of the Baron Friedman, I say. Do you know her? What does she look like? I turn to Celestian. No one I know has ever set eyes on the Baron's daughter. I do not know, Celestian says. But how did your ethereal know who she was? I question. They are no longer communicating with me, Celestian says. I believe I have exhausted my goodwill with my ethereal. In a fit of pique, I take the crystal that houses the ethereal that Celestian used from his hand. Without another word, I throw it to the ground and smash it under my heel. A puff of blue smoke shoots out. The ethereal is dead, my lord, Celestian says. There will be no communicating with him anymore. This is the fate for all those who cross the Rosenfires, I say, eyeing the hostess. Are you sure there was no one out of the ordinary? The hostess looks frightened. I can understand why. Beings from other planes that exist in Protheka with the anchor of a crystal are highly prized. Their skills are much sought after. To snuff one out so easily and callously means that whoever did that could do anything. There was one young lady. She seemed to want a reservation quite strongly, even to pay with extra gold pieces to prove she had the money to eat here. The hostess begins. That's our woman, I snap. She has the purse of a baron. Take me to her. I do not think that she is your quarry, my lord, the hostess begins, ignoring the impatient look on my face. You see, she was a... The hostess is unable to say any more, however, because I utter a simple word of magic. Silentium, I say, and the hostess's mouth closes, the sound of her voice stolen. I have no time for excuses, I say coolly. Take me to her now. The terrified hostess nods quickly and scurries off, leading me up a winding staircase to the main seating area. As we follow her through the restaurant, I catch the eyes of several patrons who seem to recognize me. I ignore them, focusing on the task at hand. There she is, my lord. The hostess points to a young woman at the end of the room. She is the one we seek. Her red hair is pulled back severely from her pale face, her eyes a rich brown. There is a hard set to her jaw that speaks of stubbornness and strength. However, right now she is being accosted by a dark elf who it appears won't take no for an answer. It makes sense. She is beautiful. Very beautiful, in fact. But there is something about her that strikes me immediately, and then I realize what it is, and I begin to laugh.
Chapter 8. Savannah. Fucking sit on my lap right now, if you know what is good for you, the dark elf growls. I shake my head. He is too strong for me, and I have no chance against him. But I refuse to give in without a fight. Leave me alone, I yell, struggling against his magic. A few of the other patrons cheer on the dark elf, and it only spurs him on. He grabs me and suddenly I am in the air, and then he slams me down onto his lap. I cry out, trying to break free, but his strong magic holds me in place. Tears spring to my eyes as he roars with laughter. I'm going to rip your clothes off right here where you dared to eat with your betters, and fuck you, little human. I am a half-elf, I cry. And all woman, he says, groping my breasts. My whole body shakes with rage, humiliation, and fear as I feel his hands on me. I cannot escape his grasp. I am completely and utterly powerless. I shriek and try to push him away, but it is too late. He's already fondling me against my will. I can hear gasps from the patrons around us, but I'm too caught up in the moment to take notice. Suddenly the dark elf's hands drop away from me, and I am free. I'm dazed and confused, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I look up to see another dark elf approach him. This one is already spoken for, my attacker says. Go find your own entertainment, or wait at least till I have my turn. The dark elf does not respond. He simply raises a finger and utters one word. I cannot catch what it is, but I do see the streak of fire shoot from his fingers and hit my attacker in the chest, throwing him back. The fire is unnatural, eating into his chest and then spreading thinly around his whole body. That is for crossing the Rosenfire family, my rescuer says. You will be in pain for several hours until death sets you free. It is a pity you will have learned your lesson only by dying, however. Perhaps you will remember this in the afterlife while you rot in glacis. I sit completely still as I watch the dark elf that was just a moment ago so powerful brought down so low. And then I turn my eyes to my rescuer. "My name is Julius Rosenfire," he says. "You must be Savannah." I am about to respond when I realize something. Julius Rosenfire is the leader of the most powerful and well-known family in all of Orthani. He is not someone to cross. I have heard my father speak of him multiple times in other rooms. "Yes," I say hesitantly, "I am Savannah." "And your mother was human?" he asks casually. I nod. "And the Baron Friedman is your father?" I nod again. He gives me a curt nod, and his eyes flick away for a moment before turning back to me. "Come with me," he orders. I have no time to think, so I just obey and follow him out of the restaurant. When we are outside, he looks at me for a few moments, considering something. Finally, he speaks.
"I know your father," he says, "and I know he is not the kind of man who would allow his daughter to be fondled against her will in a restaurant. I think we should have a talk with him about this. It would be best if you do not leave my sight until then."
He turns without another word and leads me to his carriage with the help of his manservant. I am still shaking, but I can feel that I am safe with him. "I will take you to a place where you will be safe for now," he says. "We'll talk about getting you to your father in the morning."
Chapter 9. Julius. The young woman is in her chambers asleep, Celestian informs me 2 hours later. "Are the windows barred?" I ask. "Is there a guard outside the door?" "Yes, and there are magical wards at the doors to the house as well," Celestian says. "Good," I say. I can feel my attraction to her blossoming in my chest, and I know I must stay away if I wish to keep my focus on my end goal. "Come," I say. "We must talk about what our next move should be. We must decide the best way to use her." Celestian follows me to my study, and we find a place to sit. The whole situation is complex. Savannah is far too valuable to be traded away or used as a pawn in any kind of political game. "We must be cautious," I say. "The Baron Friedman is a powerful man, and he will be wary of any move we make. We must make sure we are very calculated in our plans." "Your end goal is to remove Dukin as a threat still, my lord?" Celestian asks. I nod. "The advantage that we have is clear, Celestian," I say as I pour some wine into a goblet. "Savannah is a human. She may be part elf, but the parts of her that are visible to everyone are very human. A very beautiful human female, yes, but very, very human." "The Baron Friedman's deepest secret," Celestian says. I nod again. "Our next move should be to use that secret as leverage to get him to back off from his support of Dukin," I say. "We'll use Savannah as our tool, convince him that he should persuade his son to step away from the spotlight." "Should I move her to the dungeons?" Celestian asks me. I hesitate. Right now she is sleeping in my guest suite. "No, not yet," I say. "Keep her close, but keep her safe and comfortable. We will need her to be presentable if we are to use her as leverage." "Yes, my lord," Celestian says, bowing his head. I dismiss him and he leaves silently. I am left in my study, staring into the fire. She is so beautiful, so innocent. When I set out to find her, I did not know that in a few short hours I would have an overwhelming desire or need to protect her, but at the same time I cannot ignore the fact that I am attracted to her. I cannot help how I feel, but I must stay focused on the task at hand. Using her as a pawn is an ugly thing to do, but I am convinced that it is the best way to protect my family and our city. Because like it or not, her father is still my enemy. It doesn't matter how beautiful she is, her brother still threatens my position and the position of my family. I take a deep breath and pour myself another glass of wine, the firelight dancing in the glass. I take a sip and try to push away the feelings that rise within me. My family must be protected. I will use whatever means necessary to protect them, even if it's the beautiful Savannah. And that's when I have the perfect method to do so in a way that will hopefully not harm her at all. I quickly put my glass down and sit down to write a letter.
Chapter 10. Savannah. When I wake up, I find myself in a luxurious room with soft curtains and lush furniture. The sun is streaming through the window, and I can already hear the bustle of the city outside. I stand up and stretch, feeling relaxed for the first time in days. I take a deep breath, and the fragrant smell of roses fills my senses. A gentle knock at the door startles me. "Come in," I call, unsure who it could be. The door opens and a tall man with blonde hair and sharp green eyes stands in the doorway. "My name is Celestian," he says. "Lord Rosenfire has requested me to explain the situation to you." He steps into the room and takes a seat on the sofa. I sit down opposite him, my nerves tightening. He looks at me for a few moments, and I can see the wariness in his eyes. "My lord believes that the best way to protect you is for you to stay here until he is able to contact your father." My eyes widen. "He is sure that your father will take care of the situation," Celestian continues. "But in the meantime, you are to stay here safe and sound." I nod, my mind whirling. It is an unexpected but welcome surprise to hear that Julius is taking care of me in this way. "Thank you," I whisper, feeling strangely comforted. Celestian smiles. "I will leave you to ready yourself for the day." When he leaves, I climb back into bed and look out at the city. The view is magnificent. Julius, my rescuer, was magnificent last night. He was so strong and confident, and his touch was electrifying. I can still feel it on my skin, and I can't help but be aroused by the thought of it. I smile and don't fight the urge to pleasure myself with thoughts of Lord Rosenfire. I let myself drift away in a fantasy of his strong arms around me, my body pressed against his, and the promise of safety and pleasure in his embrace. "Oh, Julius," I moan as my fingers find their mark. I can tell I'm ready. I imagine his hands on me, exploring my body. I moan out loud in pleasure at the thought of it, wanting nothing more than for this fantasy to become reality. Suddenly, a knock at the door makes me jump. I quickly pull myself back together, composing my features before answering. My face is still flushed when I open the door, and I know the room smells of what I've done to myself. But it's probably a chambermaid, so what's the harm? That's where I'm wrong. It's Julius that's standing there.
Next time on The Dark Elves Chosen.
Julius will meet father. This is going to be worse than the restaurant.
He will recognize an enemy has him at a vulnerable moment. My intentions will be made clear. How will he respond?
And will I find out that I'm being used?
Will she run again? Will I catch her?
And will I fight my heart?
Will I lose everything to this woman?
Will we even be given the chance to explore our attraction?
Or will death claim us first?